Hello everyone, welcome back once again to On the Couch with David and Travis.
And this was episode 18, Ambivalence, which sums up my feelings towards Toji.
I'm unsure as to how ambivalence is the...
I think it's...
Is it supposed to be ironic because it's non-ambivalent?
I think it's supposed to be Gendo is ambivalent.
Oh, gotcha.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's an improvement from last time's episode.
Definitely.
But I think a big part of this, again, working as well as it could, is the fact that Toji is the pilot and that's the character. I think this whole arc would have worked so much better if we didn't have those scenes with Toji. We didn't have those stupid scenes with the girl, am I going to make lunch for three people? I'm gonna make lunch. I don't care. And then the whole focus was Shinji not wanting to kill another person versus specifically him. And then we get that shot where he finds out that it's somebody he knows, makes it much worse, and we find out too. That's how the reveal is. And that way we don't have to spend a bunch of time on this stupid, pointless character, but it's still an emotionally impactful moment.
I feel like it would be more impactful if he actually died.
I calculate that as my number one misstep in the entire series. I don't know, maybe it's a translation thing, like maybe in the US they didn't kill him. We never see him again as far as I remember.
Because I feel like what they did actually, like what we talked about last episode, where Toji's just in it a little bit, not too much, and then in this entire episode, they do not show him testing with the Ava or anything, which I think is a good decision. I think in this episode, you don't need Toji at all. No mention of him until the very end.
Or the girl. Then get her out of here.
Yeah. She is the character I care the least about. Period. The end. I don't even know her name.
I know Fuyutsuki and Kensuke. I know their names. I don't know this girl's name.
Yeah.
Because I'm so ambivalent.
Yeah. So I feel like don't show us anything about him until the very end and kill him. If you want to make it emotionally impactful and you want Shinji to actually have an emotional response that is called for, he needs to die.
That being said, I don't know. I mean, I think that's obvious. I think a lot of people who are really into this would say he should have died here. That being said, I think the setup for what's going on here is really good. Because I think having the idea of... Again, it brings back ideas of being a soldier, being in war, having to kill another person... But it goes that extra step in saying he's there doing it, but he's not the one in control.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of sort of like autonomous soldiers or, Gendo.
Ooh, that's really freaky.
That's interesting, I think. So I think that whole third act of this episode where that plays out is interesting.
Well, and what's interesting is the parallels between that and the angel itself that takes over the Ava. Because the angel, well, really, they're living beings, but they are. But the idea... might be interesting of comparing, alright, well, if we have a fully automated machine like the Ava, although we know the Ava's not completely a machine either, but how is that different than
exactly, yeah, because you're still killing something.
Yeah.
It is an interesting idea for this angel. They keep you guessing with the angels really here, because it can be anything. And now, it's an Ava. Okay, I didn't see that coming.
It's just something that took it over. Well, and we've seen it before where it's taken over the computer program system as well. So it makes sense that we know, the angels themselves can be parasitic.
And the scene where he actually takes down it is, I think, appropriately brutal. It's
oh my gosh,
it's pretty gory.
It's
bloody.
like brutal, but in the perfect way.
But it sets the tone for how something like this could horrify Shinji. And again, it's sort of a soldier thing where the horror of killing a war, and then another step of having to kill another person, but it's out of your control. Like perhaps being inside a tank that's pilot, or like a drone warfare or stuff like that. And that kind of idea is really interesting.
It's really scary.
But it would work so much better if the whole drama situation was focused on Shinji. I'm killing another person. That's what disturbing. I don't even know if you needed the reveal to be Toji. You don't even need to show a person at the end. They could just say the pilot is dead. We don't know who it is. It's someone from America. But the whole idea is that he's scarred from killing another person.
That's an interesting idea, too, because then that gets into the whole, well, you as a soldier, in terms of war, are as, your interpretation of the soldier you're fighting is as shallow as their interpretation of you and your understanding of them. So it could be interesting, but I feel like in order for that to work, they would need to do more setup.
For me, that's what I would... And you shouldn't always be given what you would have liked to see. But for me, this would have been much more impactful if that's how it played out. I'm just frustrated still with how much time we're wasting on stuff like the class girl and Toji, when the focus here is Shinji's trauma. That's what should be given as much attention as possible. I just have some other words. This conversation with Asuka and the girl, is she interested in Rei? Nah, who cares? This is stupid.
No, that's dumb.
Is she interested in Rei? This obviously, so obviously, is trying to deconstruct and sort of point out what's wrong with shows that have scenes like that. So to have a scene like that and pretty much play it straight, I think, is really poor.
What was really... I hate it. There was a scene... Oh, shoot. I forgot. Come back to me. There was a part of it that I really didn't like. I have to think about it.
I do think that I did like the scene with Shinji and Kaji at night talking. It's a small scene. Not a lot is being said. But you can tell that Kaji's trying to hint to Shinji that something else is going on. Shinji's more optimistic, though. Oh, my dad likes me. Things are okay. And that sets up, like, Shinji's optimism in that scene is a good setup towards what happens.
It's the trailer. Yeah.
And that scene is also really great, too, because I think it's the first time we see Gendo truly lose his composure and be literally screaming and have no control of the situation. Which is great because that's what we want to see. We've seen Gendo calculated and composed for 18 episodes. Let's see these other sides of him, these more disturbing ones.
Yeah. Well, and what really makes, I think... I feel like the scene where like he's ripping apart, the Eva shreds. I feel like, first of all, it didn't need any music. I thought the music was completely unnecessary. Let's just have the action itself and
I kind of like the music.
Like, the music I think was good, but I also... Like, it was adequate. Like,
it was adequate, over the top, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like in order to really like hammer in the idea that this is something that Shinji's experiencing that is traumatizing him, if we would have just heard what was actually happening with nothing else, I think that would really emphasize just how disturbing and disgusting and horrific it is.
The sound effects are pretty.
You see everyone else working back at headquarters. They're all like covering their faces and they're like, it's so disgusting, and you have the image of Gendo like smiling and watching it all, and that was so freaky, which is awesome, but it's so scary. Like, what is wrong with this guy?
I really like the disturbing imagery, and I think we haven't gotten enough of it yet, but for me, I really like when shows go there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and
some shows would cut away and you just hear like
yeah,
and like, oh, but they show us him crunching his neck, ripping off his arms,
there's like
and there's
blood
flash.
like dripping down from
those shots were beautiful with the colors of the oranges and the blood dripping. Yeah,
I mean, it's the best. I'm not a huge gore like in terms of horror movie type fan, but like this is gore done correctly.
It's body horror, I think, more than gore. Yeah.
I don't like it in like actual.
It needs
real
context.
movies.
We don't want Saw where it's just violence for the sake of being some sort of animalistic gore pervert. I hate that.
No, it's very purposeful because it's supposed to be traumatic. It's not supposed to scare you. It's not supposed to it is kind of supposed to disgust you, but it's more like this is like trauma.
I do think that scene where Masato reveals that it's Toji is really well done in the way it's shot and acted. The woman who does the voiceover for Masato is extremely talented. Just the way that's delivered with like that genuine, like, I've disappointed someone I care about way. It's not a scene I'm super emotionally invested in, but just hearing that voiceover, I'm like a little touched.
Yeah, I don't know why, but just like Shinji like overreacting it just doesn't feel warranted. I don't know why. I think
the idea isn't that him and Toji were BFFs. I think the idea is Shinji is horrified at the fact that he has killed. It should be kill. Let's just say kill. Yeah, it's the biggest mistake in the whole series that this isn't a kill, because I injured someone by accident, whatever. But if you sort of secondhand murdered someone for a 14-year-old child in this context, that's extremely traumatizing, and I think that works. It would work really well if he was dead. But they cop out, oh, he's fine. And I don't know why they do that in a show like this. You don't need to make it safe for the kiddies. We just had that scene where you're ripping organs out of a thing. Yeah. So we don't need to have, like Dragon Ball, oh, the guys, they had a parachute, they're alive in the American version. You don't need that. This isn't that show.
No. I want the drama. I shouldn't say I want the drama, but like, if you're gonna be dramatic, and I don't mean dramatic as in like over the top. I mean dramatic as in like, this is something that is very serious that's happening. You need to go all the way. And it feels like they were going for it, and then they dropped the ball.
Missed it by this much, and
they missed it by this much.
I know why they do it this way.
Beyond the
I kind of know why they do this way, and we'll get to something else in a second where I'll be like, so this is why they didn't kill Toji here, I think. But you could have really just taken... You could have rearranged these episodes, made it one episode, or done it differently, and it would feel less frustrating and time-wasting.
Yeah.
I was going to bring this up in a previous one, because it wasn't as much this episode as it was the previous one, but I think the screams are really good in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Shinji has a good at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's Shinji, Asuka, Masato, they all do wonderful screams, and it sounds like a small touch, but a convincing
it makes it realistic.
like, ah! That's a terrible scream.
Yeah.
When you can hear the pain, like you can tell these actors are hurting themselves to do this scream, I think that makes a moment much more impactful. I love a good scream.
Ooh. The idea that, the Ava and the pilot are connected,
mm-hmm.
I would have thought it was, and this might make me seem like a gorehound, but when the Ava gets its arm ripped off, I thought it would have been cool if, like, Rey's arm went...
Well, I think it's supposed to be that she's feeling as if
yeah.
it was. And I think it's at least broken or something like that. But
yeah.
You're absolutely right. And I think part of that is also because they technically don't have 100% sync ratio.
Oh, okay.
They're not good enough.
Gotcha.
But it's my understanding that if you're 100% or whatever, then it is 1-for-1 like that.
Well, it's just like in terms... It's
Yeah.
like, if you're going to go visceral, go
They
visceral.
do go kind of visceral, because you see that, though, when she's grabbing it, it's all thick and veiny.
Yeah.
And when it's choking his neck,
Yeah.
you can see
Yeah.
Shinji's neck.
Yeah,
is
so
kinda,
that's the kind of details
that's great, yeah.
It's not because, like, I love seeing gore. It's because if you're going to construct a story in that way, you should make it as visceral as possible.
And this is a show about the horrifying aspects of the human mind, and what better way to counter that with horrifying physical aspects?
Well, and the horrifying aspect of humanity and its relationship to machinery, and how, obviously we know Avas are more than machines, but let's just say for the sake of now, like we view them as more machine than human. Entering the machine enters the human itself. Mm-hmm. That is something that's really nerve-wracking to people, because as we go into further development where it's like we're going to implant chips in our brains and like that kind of stuff, that line between machinery and people is getting so much closer now, and there's so much concern about it. I think it was more so in the 90s.
For 94, that's pretty early to get into postmodernism computers. It's like
that's true.
That's 94, I think, is when this was. Because when I think of other things, I guess there's some stuff from the 80s, but I think a lot of stuff that's really like, what's going on with computers? Can we control it? Is a lot like early 2000s mm-hmm. when the internet really started taking off.
I like this a little more just because it's not so like technology is evil and it's bad for you. Like, it's not that way. It's more exploring the relationship between the two, which I appreciate more.
The lines being blurred, yeah.
I there's like the other dystopian like Black Mirror and that type of episodes. It's like technology's bad.
It's like your cell phone, you don't own your cell phone, man. Your cell phone owns you.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm Banksy, but I'm not even Banksy. I'm like Bamf.
I think that's
like
one of the weakest, most uninteresting argument is stuff like, when you see that stuff where it's like, man, Pokemon Go is ruling the world, man. Why don't you walk in a forest like Thoreau? Like, that stuff is so...
It's so pointless, and besides the point. And this is much more interesting. It's like, all right, let's actually explore the relationship between humanity and machinery. And let's do it in a way where it's not, machines are bad, humans are evil. Machines are evil, humans are good, humans are bad, machines
putting evil and good on any of this is kind of...
exactly. And the whole point is that there's nothing that is explicitly being able to categorize, being into like, yep, this relationship with technology is good or it's bad. Like, and if you view other people's like arguments and just creative endeavors of the era, I don't even really like Banksy all that much, because I feel like it's just so simplistic in terms of like, well, people are on their cell phone
nowadays. It'll be
like
a naked Disney princess hung upside down. It's like, hey man, Disney commercialism, come on.
It's like, wow, I didn't know that when I was 5 years old. Well, it's just like the concept of critiquing humanity's association with machines is like, we're relying too much on them and you're less of a human now. Like, that's what it is. And in terms of popular culture and how they choose to represent that relationship. So I feel like this is going more in depth with that, and I appreciate it much more than that.
What's cool about this is, at the time, they didn't really have the option to go for that more basic observation because cell phones weren't really a thing, the mass production of it. So they didn't even have the choice to do that, which again is cool. Okay, because we can't go for the easy observation, we have to dig a little bit deeper just because of the technology at the time.
Yeah. Well, and really, I mean, any kind of updated technology has always, and humanity in general, has always been viewed as negative. Like, a lot of people didn't like written language when it first came about because they were afraid we'd forget everything and everything would just go on paper and we'd have no memory anymore. Right? So it's like, just because we're having electrical machines now does not exclude this time period from the fears of engaging and moving technology in the future or in the past. So, I don't know. I feel like it's much more concerned with exploring that relationship and not giving an answer, rather than having an answer that they want to arrive to and then constructing a story to get to that answer.
So yeah, it's not a knock out of the park episode,
Sorry,
but there are interesting things to talk about here. There are ideas presented, and it might get you thinking. So, there's definitely some merit in that. We can't say the same about the last episode.
That sounds more interesting.
So at least there's some conversation coming from it. Again, it's not my favorite. It's not even a middle episode. But that last scene is really good. Not the last scene, but that last third is really well done.
And it builds logically off of everything we've seen so far. So that's why that part is really good. The rest of it, not so much.
Well, it's great because these moments that we really enjoy are the ones that are taking the most risk. It's the one where you're writing it and it's like, are you sure you want to do this, dude? Like, what if we just got Shinji and Asuka to kiss? Or like, what if they all became friends and fought? And it's like, I'm guessing it was Hideki Anno, but I'm sure there were other people on the team pushing these darker elements because that's what makes this entertaining.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, episode 19.